For me, a father decorated in the Second World War, cop, carried a gun. You know, I see him, he's got a uniform and a big gun on. It intimidates me. My ideal self, I want to be like that. John Wayne, 2 6-guns, back of a horse. And I began to rehearse these images as a child. And there isn't a person here that as a child didn't rehearse something. They began to rehearse a life script and create an ideal self. And I began to rehearse these images as a child. And there isn't some of that is perpetuated to this day. I don't want to be John Wayne. But some of that still exists in me. And it exists in everybody here. But the practice of rehearsing our ideal self, that is definitely still continued. You know, you can see that evidence. I'm a little self-disclosure here. I was a boy, I guess I would have been 13. And in America, we have junior high schools. So at 13, you go into the 7th grade. But there are also 15 and 16-year-olds in that school. And forgive me, some of these 15, 16-year-old girls were pretty developed. And at that age, testosterone is just being bathed onto me like it is every young adolescent. And I'm coming out of the gymnasium. We'd had a basketball practice. And there is one of these older girls, and she's leaning on the school, and she's talking to a fellow. And she is, you know, for 13, is wow. And I must have gone by her just fixed. Because she says to me, see something you like? Oh. A hole devastated me. I went home and I rehearsed. Now, John Wayne wouldn't do that. What would John Wayne do? I finally found the line. If that ever happened to me again, I'd get him. I don't know. Can't see enough to tell. Now, we've all done that kind of thing, haven't we? But I'm going to finish this story, much to my embarrassment. As the universe would have it, a few days later, I'm coming out of school again, and she's standing there. I'm ready. And she almost word for word says, still looking? See something you like? I'm ready. 13. I don't know. Can't see enough to tell. Well, come here, honey, and take a look. I never did figure out how to handle that one. So we have our ideal self, and we rehearse this. And we have the practice of rehearsal, and for most of us, we continue to rehearse to this day. How could I have done it better? What could I have said? What should I have said? And so forth. Then we have our ought self. That's our chicken self. That's what we were raised to believe would be the perfect person. If you loved me, you'd do this. If you really cared about me, you'd do the dishes like I asked. You know, you must not love me. I must have let you down, or you wouldn't treat me this way. I mean, haven't we all heard that from our parents or someone else? How am I failing you? I must be, because you're just not. Do you have any ought scripts inside your head? I ought to this, and I ought to that. Of course, we have, all of us, ought scripts, and many of them are good. They're part of our moral fiber. They're part of our real potential. But then we also have a lot of ought scripts that have nothing to do with anything except codependence. And what is codependence? Well, a codependent relationship is not a love relationship. It's a tacit agreement. It's a document that's unwritten that says, I will do this for you if you do this for me. And it works this way. How could you have loved me and done that? Have you ever heard that? If you really respected me, you would behave this way. Have you ever heard that? Or some derivation thereof? Those are codependent scripts. They are chicken yard scripts. Not that they're all bad, but some of them are designed to create a behavior, a boundary, like our 9 stars that I'm going to think within. And then we have our desired self. Now, what is our desired self? Well, you know, golly, that's who we really want to be. We want part of the yacht. It's the good, the best of it. It's that ought that originates from the inside out. I'm glad I did not decide to practice law, because if I'd ever defended someone that had been guilty, got them off on a technicality, and they had recommitted, done the same, I would have that karma. I would be unable to sleep. I would bear that responsibility. That's an ought script I like. I'll keep that one. I want that one. But there are ought scripts I don't want. So the desired includes some of the ought. It includes some of the ideal. Gosh, who today doesn't at least want to be affable enough to have friends? We all want friends. It's part of the nature of our breed. The human condition needs to be loved. It needs to be accepted. So we all work at creating part of our rehearsed ideal self to be the person we want to be. And that includes all the things we're capable of doing, but we just haven't yet realized. And we have all the actual self, including, when you're that little kid. That, too, is who we are still to this day. Now, I think we have this part of our puzzle together. I'll attempt to show you how and why we said what we did to the inmates and what the relevance of that is to you today. And believe me, it's the most important thing I could tell you in all of this. We need to construct a model of the mind, just a model. Models don't have to be perfect, but they have to be complete enough for us to be able to get some kind of a handle on what it is that we're trying to do. In that process, we have to understand that there's an awful lot in our subconscious that we're not aware of. I can remember getting a phone call in the middle of the night, Sandy Police Department in Utah. They had an armed robbery. It was one of my clients, Consolidated Theaters, and they owned all the big multi-screens and little popcorn theaters, and they paid me every month whether I did anything, just $5,000 a month as a retainer, So I get this phone call, and they've had this armed robbery, and it's their take on a Saturday night, and down to Sandy City I go. Well, the manager of this theater, prior to going to work for the theater, worked for Hertz Rent-A-Car. And so he knew automobiles very well. But when we asked him about this armed robbery, the only thing he could say is, well, I pulled into the night deposit. I saw lights in my rearview mirror of a car, and then this big gun in my face. Now, it's a big gun. That we got many, many times. Point blank in his face. That's the only thing he could tell us. So we did some hypnosis right there, see if there wasn't something else that we could uncover, and that's what forensic hypnosis is. And under hypnosis, he was a gun-avid fellow. He told us it was a .357 Magnum, square barrel, silver chamber, identified the weapon. told us the make and the model of the automobile he'd seen in the rearview mirror because we stilled that in his mind. He even gave us a partial plate as that vehicle rolled away. It's still early in the morning, maybe 3 or 4 a.m. This crime has gone down at 1:30, 1:45. We have the suspects and we have the money. All because somehow stored in this unconscious mind was a near photographically perfect, repressed because of the stress, memory of what had occurred. Every traumatic experience we suffer as children, including, well, come here and take a better look. We have a tendency to repress. And there'll be detail about it. We'll just simply forget. We want to forget it. Just about everybody here should be familiar with what's known as a Freudian slip. And we'll come back to that in a bit, but a Freudian slip is quite simply, I'm going to say something to you, but instead of saying what I thought I was going to say, something comes out of my mouth that's relevant. It's, oh, I didn't mean that. Okay? So we have a dynamic mind. There's a lot of controversy about Freud's capital U unconscious. And maybe that's due in part to his fixation on some things like the Oedipus complex or the sexuality of men and women. But one thing's for certain, this idea of an active, dynamic, subconscious mind is more than just a construct. It's operating in every single one of us. And it's full of memories. Memories from the time we first entered this plane to today. This unconscious mind predisposes much of our behavior. I said to you earlier in our $1 million analogy, how many of you want to make $1 million? Everybody's hand went up. I didn't see but 2 people, and I won't point at them, in this audience that didn't believe they could make $1 million. We know, therefore, that we have these scripts that are self-imposed. But do we also recognize that we can predispose subconscious thinking? Do we recognize that there is such a thing as false memory syndrome? We can use hypnosis, as is an instance in the very famous issue of about 6 years ago, where we had all these false memory syndromes, and there were all these young people whose father abused them or whose mother abused them, and they recalled this in hypnosis. There were lawsuits, there were defamation of character, to discover what? Almost all of them were made up. They were fantasized. You can suggest one idea on someone, and unconsciously they'll act that out. You can take a pendulum, demonstrate this to yourself. I've demonstrated it to a lot of people. Take a plain sheet of paper and draw a cross on it. You just simply tell this story. You know, the ancient Egyptians divined the sex of an unborn child or the sex of anyone by a pendulum moving on an X and a Y axis. If it moved on the X-axis, it was a male. If it moved on the Y-axis, it was a female. I want you to hang the pendulum over there, and let's see which way this pendulum moves. Oh, by the way, if it circles, that means, you know, you're uncertain of your own sexuality, okay? Now, I guarantee you, every male you put that to that's heterosexual is going to move on the X-axis, and every female on the Y-axis. And they're not going to be aware that they're consciously moving it. Little muscle, microtremors are going to cause the movement. So the unconscious is also very suggestible and very powerful at bringing out actions, even if we're not consciously aware of it. Let me give you an example of what we call an uncovering. And again, I like to tell stories As opposed to tell them about somebody else, I'll tell you about my own. I get into this field. Everything is working. I'm feeling really good. We're starting to help people. I'm thinking I'm going to change careers. I'm going to sell this criminology practice. And I get a phone call from a friend of mine at the University of Utah, William Gillory. He's chair of the chemistry department, Sorbonne fellow, director of the honors department, today professor emeritus. Brilliant man. And the phone call says, Eldon, wonder if you'd do me a favor. I'm really excited about a lot of your work. Would you share that with my honors class? Honors class. 25, 30 guys, students, kind of sit down informal. Yeah, I can handle that. Not a problem. Sure, Bill, I'll do that. Where are you meeting? Kingsbury Hall. Kingsbury Hall? Why Kingsbury Hall? That's a huge hall, as large as this hall. Larger. Oh, the Black Chemists of America are going to be here. And I'm president of Black Chemists of America. So I'd like them all to attend. I've already told him I'll do it. But I can tell you right now, there's no part of me that believed I was really going to do that. 800 of the brightest people on the planet. Oh, I can't do that. I drove there that day, but I didn't get out of the car. Sat in the parking lot for a bit. Aha! I'll tell him I had a flat tire. I sped away. The number one fear in America is public speaking, and I didn't even know I had one at that point in time, but I was petrified. I don't know of what, something. Maybe my zipper wouldn't be, I don't know, I thought and thought about that, and I could not get myself to tell Bill, a good friend, the truth. Sorry, Bill, flat tire, spare was flat, just couldn't make it. I'm really sorry I let you down. Well, as the universe does things, if you don't get it right the first time, they give you a substitute teacher, and she's always worse. I have a client, Hollywood personality, terrified of performing. Can we create a program to help her? I'm living in Salt Lake City at the time. It's January. In January there, they get hot air inversions because of the Great Salt Lake. Just gets black and sooty, and you can't see the sky for a month. And so my habit in January was to drive down to southern Utah, the canyon lands, the Grand Canyon, all that beautiful red rock you see, and brochures, and blue sky, and I'd have my weekend in Canyonlands. Tie together my notes, etc. So Friday night I finished making this tape, grabbed it, jumped in my car, drove to Science Park. Got to Zions, went to the cabin. It's late at night. I'd better check this out before I ship it off. So I put the tape in. I'm going to play the tape, write a few things, look over some notes. I'll just kind of lean back, supine position on the bed, which I do. Only I fall asleep, and the tape's playing. And it has these messages. And all of a sudden, I have a dream. Only the dream is a real-life revivification. It's not made up. It's something that happened to me when I was very young that I totally forgot about. My father's side of the family was from Idaho. And they were very, what we call blue collar. They were lumberjacks and policemen and firemen and hard-working, everyday people. And my mother's side of the family, well, that was the DuPonts and the Wickles. They were business people, lawyers, judges, and they didn't get along, these two sides of the family. My dad from Idaho, my mother from Wyoming, they moved to Utah, kind of keep the families apart. But we have a family reunion. I'm 6 years old. There's a TV show that I just love. It's called Hit Tunes. And they every night the show comes on, it plays the best music, the top 10 musics. And they're performed. And there's a song called Vaya con Dios. And I just love this song. And I learn all the words to this song. Because at 6 years old, I know I'm going to be a singer. And I sing it for everybody. Well, we have this family reunion, and there's tension boiling, and there's about to be a fight. My mother is going to rescue the day. She grabs me, puts me in the middle, and says, my son sings. Sing Vaya con Dios. I couldn't hit a note. My voice broke up. I ran out of the room in tears. And an adaptation took place. I'm never going to be a singer. I'm never getting close to a stage. There is no way that has ever happened to me again. I'll be a scientist in a laboratory. But you know, I have this dream, and I remember this experience, and I sit up in the bed. Doggone you, Mother. And I suddenly realize why I'm afraid of public speaking. It has nothing to do with anything other than, as a very small child, in order to avoid ever having that embarrassment again, I made many adaptations. And every one of those was designed to keep me away from anything that would ever just stick me in front of everybody and say, sing. I can today say thanks, Mom, and thanks to this entertainer. Because what happened is the messages on that program had a workshop with my subconscious, and I had an uncovering. Now, what's the value of an uncovering? When you're a child, you have a bad evening, and you're looking in your room, you're scared, and you see this silhouette over in a corner, and you know that's the boogeyman, whatever you call him. And you call out, and Dad or Mom come in, and they throw the light on. And it's the way you put your pants on the door, where you suddenly know what it is. And they turn off the light. It's the same thing, but I know what it is, and it no longer has power on me. But if I don't know what it is, if I haven't made that uncovering, it's got a lot of power. One of the things that we therefore have to understand is that we not only have all this material in our subconscious, but this material is designed by its nature to hide itself from us. Because if it shows itself, or it shows the mechanism that it's using to protect us, the mechanism no longer works. And we'll get to defense mechanisms in a minute. It's possible that like fleas in a circus, trained under a glass dome, or an elephant as a baby, tethered with a huge chain, we reach the edge of the chain, and after we've fallen down sufficiently, no longer pull on that chain. And then as an adult elephant, you can tether me with a shoestring. I'm not going to pull on it because my experience taught me I can't go anywhere. We have self-imposed limitations, each and every one of us. These limitations create expectations. And as you'll see, our expectations have a whole lot to do with how we view the world, how we view health, wellness, success, or our potential as a species or an individual. There's a story, again, I like to tell about expectations, because it helps us understand that everything that we may expect is not necessarily what it should be or what's a good outcome. There's a marvelous country western song. A young man, he's in love with his high school cheerleader, but she'll have nothing to do with him. And gosh, you know, he ends off going out and marrying someone else. But that someone else is just perfect. And then he goes to a reunion, And there he sees this childhood love. And the lyrics to this song I'll never forget. Thank God for unanswered prayers. Because he has prayed to God that she would love him. And now he sees her and she's hostile and bitter and, 20 years have passed. And it's thank God for unanswered prayers. A lot is just perspective. Well, the story goes this way. Civil War days, United States of America, North versus South. The Northern Army is marching, and they're subscripting every able-bodied man into the Army to fight. And the word is that they're coming. And they're also buying horses and those things that are necessary for the Army. Well, there's a farmer and his boy is of the age to be subscripted. And the farmer is naturally worried about it. He depends on his boy to plow the fields and do the work. He's gotten a little too old to do it. And one day his boy is out plowing, and their mule jumps into the air, bolts, and runs away. Well, without that mule, you can't plow, you can't farm. And the whole town turns out. Such bad luck. Such bad luck. And the farmer says, good luck, bad luck, who knows? Well, they left the gates open on the corral, hoping that this mule would come back. And the next morning when they get up, instead of a mule, it's a whole herd of wild horses that have gone in to get the feed they laid out. So they run out and they throw the gates closed. A whole herd of horses with an army marching, the whole town. Such good luck. Good luck. And the farmer, good luck, bad luck.